Even before Biden announced he would not seek re-election, Republicans have referred to Harris as the border czar, responsible for the immigration crisis. Our KHU11 Verify team looks into whether the vice president is truly the border czar. Here's Tracy and Brad.
The references to Vice President Kamala Harris as the border czar are practically everywhere.
She was appointed border czar.
Border czar.
Border czar.
Border czar. Even in a U.S. House resolution filed by a Texas congressman in March of 2023. This all starts at a White House meeting about immigration on March 24th, 2021. One of two announcements made by President Biden is assigning the handling of the border to Harris.
It's not her full responsibility job, she's leading the effort.
So is Kamala Harris the border czar of the Biden administration? Our sources are the White House, the University of Houston, and Rice University.
There is no question that Kamala Harris was named border czar. However, I think there is some doubt regarding what actual influence she's had on Biden administration border policy over the course of the past 3 years.
Rice University professor Mark Jones adding it is Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas who's actually running the day-to-day operations at the border based on the Biden administration's policies. So is Kamala Harris the border czar of the Biden administration? Well, our sources say that answer needs context. As U of H professor Brandon Roddinghouse shared via email, quote, there are technically czars in the White House, personnel who have a single administrative policy task. What Harris did as VP is more of a diplomatic assignment as the VP rather than a full-fledged policy role. But she was clearly intended to be the point person for the immigration issue. With your Verify, I'm Tracy and Brad.
Thank you, Tracy. And read more about how this process works, including what Harris needs to secure the nomination and what she could pick as who she could pick as a running mate. That's all right now on KHOU.com.
Good evening, Patriots, and welcome to another edition of the Douglas Ducote Show. You got many places to be tonight, but chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. So, the big thing going on right now across all of social media and all your network news organizations is what was Kamala Harris's actual role with dealing with our border. And did she do anything to help secure our border? Before I bring my guest on tonight, I want to share something with you real quick. This is per CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox News, and all news media print, aka newspapers, on March 21st of 2021. The following hit all the cables and all the networks put out this information. President Joe Biden is tasking Vice President Camila Harris with overseeing efforts with Central America countries to stem the flow of migrants to the U.S. southern border. The first major issue Biden has assigned directly to his number two. I'm asking her, the VP, today, because she is the most qualified person to do it, to lead our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle and the countries that need help in stemming the movement of so many folks, stemming the migration to our southern border. Biden told reporters ahead of an immigration meeting in the White House state dining room. I said when we became a team and got elected that the vice president was going to be the last person in the room, he said. She doesn't realize that means she gets every assignment. Migrants are again arriving at our border at increased levels, causing a scramble by the administration to accommodate them and a political problem for the White House. Thank you, Mr. President, for having the confidence in me, she said. There is no question that this is a challenging situation, Harris said. While we are clear that people should not come to the border now, we also understand that we will enforce the law, that we also, because we can chew gum and walk at the same time. We must address the root cause that causes people to make the trek to America, as the president has described, to come here. Officials said Harris would focus her efforts on stemming the current flow of migrants and on developing a larger strategic partnership with Central American countries based on respect and shared values. Starting today, the Northern Triangle of Mexico will know there is one senior official dedicated to this effort. A senior administration official said on Wednesday in previewing Harris's new role. The vice president, until now, had not been tasked with a key portfolio issue distinct from Biden. Instead, she acted as a full partner to Biden, appearing often physically alongside him on all the administration's efforts, including their self-proclaimed top priority, managing the coronavirus pandemic. Those close to Harris said foreign policy and national security are key areas she wants to develop in her portfolio. And she's taken steps to beef up her experience since taking office, including by speaking with foreign leaders. During her own presidential run back in 2019, Harris said she would expand the use of deferred action immigration programs and utilize executive action to remove the threat of deportation of millions of undocumented people in the U.S. if she were to be elected president. Now the VP, she says, look, we've been in office less than 100 days. We are addressing it. We are dealing with it, but it's going to take some time. And we are frustrated. Are you frustrated? Yes, we are. Officials said Harris would rely on her experience as Attorney General and Senator from California, a border state, to inform her diplomatic efforts. They said she would supported by officials from the cabinet, including the State Department and U.S. aid, and was likely to speak with the leaders of key countries, though did not specify phone calls to preview. Officials said Biden brought Harris into the new role because of an inherent level of trust. He has experienced and lived through this process as vice president himself, an official said. Biden has said over and over again, the person that I trust most, the person I turn to whenever there's a hard issue is Kamala Harris. Still, a separate official said Harris would approach the matter differently than Biden did when he was appointed to the same position under Obama, who traveled to Guatemala City back in 2015 for a meeting with leaders of Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras as part to develop solutions to issue of migrants from those countries coming en masse to the United States. Vice President Harris taking on this challenge in her own style, in her own way, the White House said in a statement. Now, what more do we need to say that she was the border czar? She was the person, according to all the news media when it happened, is responsible for fixing the problem at the border and letting the president of the United States know what she found. How do we stop this flow? And what did they do? Well, they reversed all of the policies that Donald Trump had put in place to stem the flow of illegal immigrants coming across our border, which bring fentanyl, thousands and thousands of pounds of drugs that are killing American citizens, killing our children, to stop the cartel from bringing across women and children for sex trafficking, to stop the MS-13 gang members that are killing Americans. And what are we finding out now? Many terrorists on the terrorist watch list coming across our southern border because they can't get here any other way. They'd be flagged as soon as they boarded an airplane. So they come to the cartel and the cartel sneaks them across. This continues to do what? Makes people fall into the category of angel families. And I've told you this once, I've told you this 100 times or more, that you need to be aware of what angel families are, just like you need to be aware of what Gold Star and Blue Star families are. Angel families are those who lost a loved one due to an illegal alien that shouldn't have been here in the first place. They killed them in one way or another, either outright murder or vehicle homicide, you name it, all the different ways that you can lose your life. If an American citizen is killed by an illegal alien, that family falls under what we now call and refer to as angel families. Gold Star families are the ones who lost a loved one serving for our country in the U.S. military. And Blue Star families are those that have service members currently deployed. So the guest I'm bringing on tonight, I figured there's really nobody else out there that I currently know of, especially nobody from the administration, to be straight up honest with you about just how painful this problem is. And that is somebody who was personally affected by what the Obama administration did on our border when Joe Biden was vice president, and now what's happening with Joe Biden as president and Camila Harris as vice president, who now, it looks like, will be the nominee for the Democrats to go up against Trump for president of the United States. Who better to do that than my personal friend, Dan Govich? Before I bring him on, I want to share something with you with an interview that he did with Fox News that I believe is very, very important for you to hear.
Ago, Senate Democrats voted to block two bills, so they would have curbed illegal immigration. The first would have defunded so-called sanctuary cities. Those are cities which shield criminal aliens from deportation. The second bill is known as Kate Steinle's bill, and that would raise punishment for illegal re-entry. Kate was killed by an illegal immigrant in the sanctuary city of San Francisco in 2015. My next guest's life has also been changed forever by an illegal immigrant. His son was killed. Dan Govich says his son is dead because the concept of borders is gone. Dan, thank you for joining us, and we want to just first say very sorry for your loss. I'm sure this is still very difficult to talk about. Your son's killer was deported 4 times, but ended up returning to Houston, Texas. Kate's law would force a minimum 5-year sentence for illegals who re-enter the country, and that was just blocked. What is your reaction to that first?
Well, I'm happy with laws. My son's killer did 5 years in prison for attempted murder before he was let out by Obama. But, I'm all fine with laws, but we have to have politicians that will actually implement the laws, and I think that's the bigger problem, finding politicians that will implement. They don't implement the current laws that we have.
Dan, when you have reached out, as I'm sure you have, and I hope you felt supported by your community, but when you work with lawmakers, what kind of feedback are you getting? Well,
they're always good for a photo op, but I think most of the politicians that we have in office these days, Deirdre, they're not going to defy their donors. And I think that the donor class is really big on this cheap illegal labor. And of course, you have the Democrats that, they're ushering in a voter bloc. So, they're not going to let something like these pesky immigration laws get in the way of their agenda.
Dan, what is it that you feel the most strongly about, in the sense that if you could get one law passed now, you could write it yourself, what would be in it?
It would be a law that punishes politicians for not implementing the current laws that we have. I think the current laws that we have are good. They're just not being implemented. They're not, they're not upholding current laws. They're not securing the border, and they're not putting American families first. And I've testified before on these sanctuary city bills with Laura Wilkerson here in Houston, and she's testified in D.C. Both in front of the House and Senate Judiciary, and I've met with a woman when we met with Trump, Carrie Ruiz, who's been testifying for 17 years, and nothing ever gets done. nothing's ever been. We've been trying to get sanctuary city laws passed for that long, and it's just frustrating. But I think that you're going to need politician reform before you reform anything else, because the current crop of politicians that we have don't seem to be, that doesn't seem to be that high up on their agenda.
And they're not enforcing the rules that I hear what you're saying are already there.
And that's what we're doing with the remembranceproject.org, the organization I'm with. We're trying to, what we're calling for is to hold our politicians accountable and force them to implement current laws. And if we're going to pass new laws, well, they need to implement those as well.
Dan, we want to extend our...
Had they been implementing the current laws that we have, my son would still be alive, and I think a lot of these people would still be alive, but they just refuse to do it.
Dan,
they're lawless.
I'm so sorry for your loss. My condolences, heartfelt to you and your family. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
And with that, please welcome my guest, Dan Govich. Dan, thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to us today. How are you doing today, brother?
Hanging in there, Doug. How you doing?
Very, very good. What I liked about that clip was probably the best thing I've ever heard somebody say about the problem we face today, and that is lawmakers being held responsible for their inaction of enforcing current laws. And you said, I would pass a law to make them be punished for what they're doing. And that speaks volumes to everybody, I believe, that's the root of the problem right there, is that whether it's Republicans or Democrats, look, yes, Trump did a lot of good things for us, and hopefully he's going to do a lot of good things if he gets reelected in November. But throughout history, neither party has done much of anything to help fix this problem the way it needs to be fixed. And that is just enforcing the current rules on the books. And you, sir, as I know all too well from being your friend over the past several years and the conversations we've had, have suffered immensely from the inaction of these members of Congress with the loss of your son, Spencer.
Well, it is a bumpy road, and it's this club that I'm in, the Angel Family Club. It's not something that it's not a club you want to be part of. It's a pretty dark place at times, and it's a little different than losing a child or a loved one to natural causes or an accident or something, because the scab is constantly being peeled off and the wound is reopened, because you have to sit there every day and watch your government overtly, deliberately thumb their nose at the laws that were designed to protect your loved one.
Yeah, and I think to most American citizens, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, it shouldn't matter. You should have compassion enough to see how this is destroying part of our population in this country. And they don't seem to give a damn up in Washington, D.C. about how you feel or the other Angel families feel. Do you know, Dan, offhand, what the current number of Angel families are right now? Do you know what that number is, or anywhere close to it?
I don't even know. The federal government does a pretty good job of not letting that data out. They don't want that to get out. I've heard that 7 Americans die every day due to illegal immigration. I can't. It could be more. I can just tell you that all you have to do is go to the Stolen Lives quilt that Marie Espinosa and the Remembrance Project put up, and you can just see page after page after page after story after story. My son's on it, but there's thousands. And, if say, I would say there's many thousands of people that are in my situation. And if a country did that all at once, we would consider that an act of war.
Right.
Somebody came in and killed 2,000 or 3,000 Americans, like on 9/11.
Right.
We would consider that an act of war. But since this is since it's our government doing it, it is an act of war by our government on us.
Yeah, it is. I mean, technically, it's the people that are in charge of fixing this problem are doing everything but fixing this problem. And when it comes election time, then all of a sudden they're going to jump through their asses and they're going to try and come up with something to try and just appease the masses, which isn't going to work because we've all watched what their inaction for the past 3.5 years. And then to hear all the news outlets, liberal and conservative, CNN is MSNBC, ABC, all of them, as I mentioned in the beginning of the show, explain that Camila Harris's job was to figure out how to fix this problem on our border. And now, what a slap in the face as we're getting close to election for the news media, the same news media who put it out there that she's the border czar and that's her job to fix this, spinning it and saying, well, she was never, ever put in charge of the border. How dare you say something like that? Because they know it's fixing to come back and bite them in the ass because she was, and she failed at that job like she failed at every job she's ever had in her life. I think she was good at one thing and one thing only, and she probably failed at that because Willie Brown kicked her ass to the curb.
Yeah. Well, the media is, to me, is an extension of government in a lot of ways. And just as they have no conscience about Americans being killed, because of their policies at the border, lack of enforcement, why would they have any guilty conscience about lying to us straight to our face? And they just know that there's enough dumbasses out there that, will take the sound bite and swallow it.
Right.
That maybe get them close enough with the cheat factor, they can win an election. They're just a bunch of liars. And they lie about everything. They are the greatest enemy that American people have.
But they love photo ops.
Yep. It's just kabuki theater. But the greatest enemy that we have is not overseas. It's in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. And if you listen to the Democrats, the greatest enemy are white people. Like, we're out there flying rebel flags and hanging people from trees. And I mean, you would literally believe, if you listen to the Black Caucus, that the KKK is rampant, running across the nation, doing everything in their power to suppress black people, when it turns out it's the Democrats that are doing this to the black population, and that are also doing this to the Americans of all races by, once again, allowing those to come across our border and then kill your loved ones.
Oh, yeah.
And, for those that don't know, I'll share a little personal insight with that I've been blessed with. And I'm glad he shared this with me, because it drives home the point of the pain that angel families feel when you look at everything that's happening with the government not doing anything. And that is for Spencer's birthday, and also for Spencer's remembrance of the day that he was laid to rest. You have shared with me not only photos of him growing up as a child, but also in his coffin. And that is embedded in my heart, Dan, forever. It's a connection that I feel that we share that's unlike even some of the things I've shared with my brothers in foxholes. And it's something also it's allowed me to continue to push when I do my show to talk about how bad this situation is down there on our border and how it's affecting everyone. It may not affect the average person that listens to this show or listen to any show. But at the rate we're going as a country, I believe if the Democrats continue to hold power, let's say moving on to another 4 years or 8 years, I think in that time frame, every American, regardless of where you live, is going to know someone, or at least know someone who knows someone who's an angel family, because now every state has become a border state, and more people are losing their lives due to those that shouldn't be here, and not necessarily by accidents. Yes, a few times that happens, but the gang members that are coming across and the sex trafficking of women and children is, as far as I'm concerned, any politician that isn't actively involved with trying to find a way to ease the pain of people like you, Dan, and your fellow Angel family members, then they're just as guilty as the cartel is. And the blood is on their hands too, for turning a blind eye and not doing the right thing to secure that damn border. And we've fought and continue to fight to expose this and to get people to just go, this isn't okay. Why are we allowing people like Dan and his fellow Angel family member they're part of this clan that they don't want to be a part of? You know, why is that okay? And this government, for the most part, just doesn't seem to give a damn, just like they don't seem to give a damn about veterans and the 22 that are killing themselves every day by suicide. Dan, if you had the opportunity to sit down with Camila Harris, if she contacted you tomorrow, which I'd never hold my breath on that, but let's say she did and wanted to talk to you, what would be the first things that come to mind that you would want that woman to know moving forward?
Well, I would want to know which one of her loved ones she wants to go pick out to offer up as a blood sacrifice to this agenda of hers. It's your turn, Kamala.
Yeah.
It's, let's get some of your family's blood in the game.
Yeah.
And I would say that to any of those politicians. And I can think of a lot of that pretty much encompasses all the Democrats and a significant portion of the Republican Party.
I agree.
Want them. I think once they start losing their kids, once you see their spouses dance around in agony around the coffin of their child, then I think maybe they might rethink this border. But until it affects them, maybe we should do away with their security and their gated communities that they live in, and let them be exposed to this the way they expose the rest of us to it, and let some of their kids, join the club that they thrust my son into, and we'll see where they stand.
Right.
I just can't stand these people, Doug. I really got to say this. I'm at a point now where I just hate these bitches and bastards. I wouldn't even talk to Kamala. I probably wouldn't be a good idea for me to be in the same room with her. She killed my kid along with her ideological cohorts in D.C. It's just that simple. I've always said that the illegal aliens are foot soldiers, but the generals and commanders are these pieces of shit in D.C. And it goes higher than them. They're really basically yes men. I mean, they get orders to do this. Whether it's cheap labor, illegal alien labor-loving donors, or if it's these Cloward and Piven strategists that want to reshape the United States and turn it into something that it wasn't meant to be. And what the answer is, I'm not sure. I mean, if everybody was as angry, it could feel the anger and the raw emotion and the pain that angel families feel. Maybe especially the politicians. Maybe something would be. I don't know that anything's ever going to be done. And I don't know that it isn't too late, because let's face it, we've got, 20, 30, 40 million of them here. And unless, the way I see it, unless somebody comes in there and is serious about securing the border and is serious about repatriating all these invaders that just came in here willy-nilly on their own terms, I don't see how we overcome this, because it will eventually translate into a voting bloc, and
which is what I think their whole purpose was.
It's a Cloward and Piven. I mean, they're going to overwhelm the system, and this was just deliberate. There's varying reasons as to why Democrats and Republicans allowed this, but ultimately it is to bring the United States down. And right now, I can't tell you that we aren't in hospice. I just don't know. I mean, I don't. You can elect a guy as president. You can elect Donald Trump president, and sure, and but you still have this giant beast called DC,
right?
Full of all of these bought-off politicians and unelected bureaucrats and so forth. And he's not emperor, I mean, he can put forth legislation or ideas, but they'll water it down, or they'll pass it and figure a way out not to enforce it, or it's just all kinds of games that they play. But what the American people, your listeners, need to know is this idea that we're a representative government is nonsense. It's just nonsense. It's supposed to be, but that's not the way it really works. And the people that, as you said, that even the people we vote for don't give a shit about us. They don't give two shits about us at all.
You're right.
They're more than happy to offer your children up as a blood sacrifice to their agenda, or whatever enriches them, or whatever is good, best for them. Yeah. It's a little cabal up there, and
with elections coming up, is there anybody that comes to mind in Texas where you're at that maybe we should start talking about, that's actually looking forward to trying to find a way to fix this problem, that's running for election?
Well, I don't know about anyone that's running for election. I've worked on some campaigns with some people, but in primaries that they didn't win. That's just it. I mean, the problem is campaigns are expensive and the devil is rich.
Right.
And, we do have a few elected officials that I think might be well placed into Trump's, if he gets into his administration, like maybe Ken Paxton. I wouldn't put Abbott or Dan Patrick or any of these people. I don't believe in them. They're phony. They're just kabuki theater script readers. And but Kim Paxton has shown some real resistance against this, which is why they attacked him the way they did. But I don't have too much confidence in, I hate to say this, I just don't believe anybody that's going to become the nominee. It's because they've been given a lot of money, and they've been given a lot of money by people that aren't particularly invested in what's best for the American people.
Yeah, they have an agenda that's completely goes against, well, it goes against common sense.
Our government is our government is for sale. I mean,
right? Yeah, it is the highest bidder, and the highest bidder right now happens to be the cartels.
Yep. Or there's all sorts of other countries that come in and they get lobby groups and they babysit our politicians. And if you don't, if you're not willing to be subjugated to what they tell you to do, then they'll fund your primary opponent. And that's just how it works. We got all this money, and it's just actually, in a way, I can't even really be mad at a lot of these politicians because they really don't have a choice. If you're going to get elected in the first place, you got to play ball. Again, the devil is rich, and that's who you got to play ball with in United States politics.
Well, and what a shame that is. I mean, you're right. You're 100% correct. That they are, there's hands in pockets there, and some of those pockets are very, very deep. And that swamp that we call DC is literally, it's no longer, I don't look at it, I don't view it as a swamp per se, because a swamp, at least in the South where I'm at in Louisiana, swamps are beautiful. That's a fucking cesspool up there is what that is. It's full of feces and urine and shit that will kill you.
Yeah, it's a crime syndicate, and they're just all criminals. But there's no accountability because they control and run all the government agencies that were supposed to keep them accountable. So we're under a mob, or not a mob. I don't want to say mob. We're under a criminal cartel. That's what Washington D.C. is. Yeah. It's just groups of criminals. And
I had the opportunity yesterday to do a Zoom conference with one of our mutual friends, Maria, and she said to make sure I say hello to you. She loves you just like I do, and just like the rest of us do. Dan, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. Brother, you know where I stand with you, I hope, and vice versa. And you're always welcome on this show, and I will continue to push forward, exposing what's happening on that southern border. And we'll definitely be talking real soon.
I appreciate that, Doug. You've been a consistent voice on this, and I really do appreciate that.
Thank you, brother, and God bless you.
God bless you.
Folks, I want to make sure everybody understands something real quick here. I want to take you back to in the early years of my time in the United States military. I was in aviation, as most of you know. I was a flight engineer on a CH-47 Chinook helicopter. And my first commander-in-chief was Ronald Reagan. And one of the things that we were actively involved with, not just our active duty military, but the National Guard and the DEA. And that is going after the cartels all over Mexico and Central and South America. We were actively involved. We were using our Army helicopters, active duty, flying DEA people in with a coalition of Mexican, Central American forces and taking these people out. taking it right to them, taking the fight to them, wiping out their drug crops, wiping out all their facilities, going after the big bosses of the cartels. And it was a time in American history where America was proactive over there where the problem was, all over Central and South America and Mexico, taking the war to them to stop them from coming here. You know, it's the old saying, like dealing with terrorists, you know, take them out over there in the Middle East, because if you don't, they're going to come here and take us out. And that's the policy that we used to have in America, using our military forces along with our federal, state, local, even sheriffs, actively involved with stopping what was coming across that border before they ever got there. And then eventually, as Democrats started taking control, those things started getting further and further down the path of things that were important. And it ended up where it is today. You know, we currently still do have a small presence of DEA operating in certain areas of Central and South America and Mexico. Very small element that's not even a drop in the bucket. It's so small, trying to stop this stuff. As far as the sex trafficking of women and children are concerned, we have just a minute position installed to help. And most of that is relying on the own country's armed forces and law enforcement to do it. And they're caving into the cartel that's paying them to turn a blind eye, look the other way. So there was a time, I assure you, because I was actively involved with it, with taking our helicopters and going down there and being actively involved with this. We even had Navy SEAL missions where we had SEAL teams on board our helicopters, and we would go in and we would insert them at night under MBGs in the water with their Zodiac boats and let them go in and take these folks out and then come and retrieve them. Bringing in DEA to take out their crops and all their, whether it was marijuana, whether it was cocaine. There was a time, talk to anyone in the 80s that was involved in law enforcement and involved in the military, whether it was active duty National Guard. We were actively involved with taking the fight to them there. And we didn't have what we have today on our southern border. That went away. We no longer do that. Now we're spending billions and billions of dollars in other people's borders. And the American people are suffering for it. We're suffering for it, for their inaction of what they're doing in Washington, D.C. And then we have people like Dan, who had to bury his son because of the problems in Washington, D.C. And at this point, with him, it was the Obama administration. You know, these people tried to say that when Donald Trump came in, that he was putting kids in cages. And then it was all proven bullshit. That was the Obama administration that was doing that. And then they blamed it on Trump. Well, at least the Obama administration was doing something. I'm all for the cages until we got a place to put them. But dumping them into our cities the way they're doing now and just letting them out the fucking door and not vetting them properly is destroying our country. It's ripping it apart at the seams. And this message has to get out to the American voter. It must be brought out to the American voter. It's up to you, the people, to share these messages that I put out or that other conservatives put out on social media, and let your friends and family know about it. For God's sake, without you sharing the information I'm bringing to you, then I'm wasting my time, and so is everybody else. We may as well just sit back and give in to these bastards and let them take over this country. We must hold these politicians accountable for their inaction and for the things they're doing to destroy this country. And we must get this message to those that are clueless. And that's in all ages, especially in our universities. But even adults in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s that think that the Democrat Party is the best party and they have the best interest because they don't realize it's no longer the party of JFK. They don't realize that it's been hijacked by far left liberals and their ideology. And that's what's destroying everything that our forefathers built and put into place for we the people. The current administration, to include that laughing, cackling hyena, is clueless. And now this younger generation, for the first time ever, most of them, for the first time ever, I would say 99% of the younger generation that's now on board with Camila Harris, they didn't know a damn thing about her until Joe Biden stepped aside and let her now take the lead. Now they turn and look, oh, a black woman. Oh, who is she? They don't even know who the hell she was. They can't tell you what she did. And all they're listening to is the spin of CNN and MSNBC telling them how great this woman is. When for years, the truth has been out there, but they haven't followed it. But guess what? Kamala Harris has been told, do not stray from that teleprompter. As long as she reads verbatim what's on that teleprompter, guess what? She sounds like a very intelligent person. Well, depending on what you want to call intelligent, but at least it's articulate. And to them, the younger generation, they don't even know what a teleprompter is, and they can't see it, so they think she's looking into the camera and just listen how great she talks and the things she's saying. And oh my gosh, she's a black woman, and it'll be our first black woman to be president, when they have no clue that she's not a black woman at all. She's not African American. She's got a family member from Jamaica and the other one's from India. That doesn't make you a African American black woman. But yet, that's the spin that's going with. Donald Trump brings that out yesterday and says something about it. Oh my God, how dare he question her? Look at her. How can you not tell that she's an American black woman? It's pandering to votes. She ever gets off that teleprompter for 1 minute, then they will see what an absolute idiot she is. And I'll be sharing more and more videos as we get closer of just what an idiot that woman is, as she talks about yellow school buses and how the wheels go round and round, or whatever. There's so many things that she has said that is just, you think, how did she get to where she's at now? And look, to the younger generation, if you just go back and look at the videos of the very first debates back when Camila Harris was running to be the nomination to be president of the United States, with Joe Biden running as well, that cackle of people, and listen to the things that she said about Joe Biden during the debates that were true about him being a racist bigot, and yet he picks her anyhow. Well, the younger generation doesn't realize that, nor will they go back and watch these clips. But I'll keep sharing them, and I keep bringing the truth out there. I'll bring it forward in hopes that you will share it so that the message gets out there. We are one step away from the total destruction of this United States of America as we know it because of the evil that's the Democrat Party. And who better to drive that point home than somebody that used to be a Democrat? You're looking at him. You're listening to him. I so believed in the Democrat Party for so many years. I grew up surrounded by Democrat politicians that were family members. One of my cousins became the Democrat governor of Louisiana. And I was a fool. I was a fool. I didn't know any better. And then later in life, when I woke up and really did my homework, I realized what a mistake I'd made. And eventually I switched parties. And I just hope that we can get this message out there to enough of these Democrats today to realize that we're headed in the wrong damn direction. And this woman that wants to be the president of the United States doesn't give a shit about people like Dan and the other Angel family members. And they don't give a shit about Gold Star members either. They're horrible, despicable, hateful people. And they've got to be called out and called to the carpet. And it's up to us, we the people, to make sure that happens. Folks, you had many places to be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I'm forever grateful. Very thankful for my guest, Dan Govich, for coming on tonight and talking to you, and for us sharing a little bit about what it's like and what people like him that you don't hear much about these days because the news media doesn't want to talk to them because, it goes against the narrative of putting more Democrats that don't care about them in elected positions. In the description of this and all my videos and all my shows, you can find other places. You can follow me on social media. Follow me there. I'll follow you back. That's how we do this. That's how we continue to spread the word. Whatever you're doing this weekend, please be safe. I started out Tuesday night show or towards the end of Tuesday night show telling you that I was on my way to the boat because I thought it was freaking Thursday. Well, now it is Thursday. And I'm heading to the water this weekend tomorrow, and I don't plan to be back off the water till Sunday. But if something breaks or whatever, I'll make sure that I can get to a camera and do a show about it or do a video about it. Other than that, I hope that whatever you're doing this weekend, you're safe. And I want you to remember people like Dan, and know that there are people out there in this country that are suffering under this administration and those that want to be president, suffering because of their inability to do the right thing. And that's got to be exposed and continue to be exposed. As always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders, their families, our Angel families, our Blue and Gold Star families, and our country. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless each and every one of you. And once again, I'll leave you with, if you don't know what Angel families are or Blue and Gold Star families, please, I beg you to look it up. Do a simple Google search and educate yourself, because they need our support more now than ever before, because this current administration, to include Camila Harris, is pissing on the graves of their loved ones, and that shit is unacceptable. Thank you. Good night, and God bless each of you. And I'll see you back here next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central Time. Good night, everyone.